It is just so good to be back doing these chats. I've wanted to be doing them for a long time, and we're sort of beginning a transition here from our live stream, which will still be available, but also just allowing these little nuggets, these little virtual moments between you and I together. I want to start by this quote from Neville Goddard. Neville is one of my favorite authors. He to me is sort of the bridge between new thought and quantum physics, because what Neville teaches us to do is to create an imagination, a prototype, if you will, within our mind, and to let it really seep in so that our body begins to experience it and to hold it, almost like creating a short film in which we're the star in the thing that we're intending. We hold ourselves into that experience, and then what happens is it moves into the subjective part of us. And this is where the quantum physics come in, because then what begins to happen is the subjective mind begins to build this bridge toward this possibility. Because what we have done is we've created a prototype in our imagination, we've placed it out there, and our subjective mind begins to move towards that. The decisions that we make, the choices that we hold, the ideas, synchronicity, everything seems then to converge towards the intention. So, what Neville says is he says that the world is as you are. And maybe just for a moment, quietly think to yourself, maybe use this as an affirmation. The world is as I am. Now, what I'm not saying, and I don't want to confuse you, is this idea that we create our own reality, because we really don't create our own reality because there's so many of us on the planet. How could that possibly be? But what we do create is we create our own perception of reality. And what we experience is always contingent on what we perceive things to be. And so the world that we live in, as Emma Curtis Hopkins would say, is an exact record of our thoughts. It is because it's shaping how we begin to see it. Often when I teach classes in metaphysics, or if I'm working with somebody in a counseling situation, one of the first questions that I ask is, what kind of universe do you live in? Do you live in an intelligent universe, or a universe that's devoid of intelligence or consciousness? Do you live in a universe that is loving? Or do you live in a universe that is malefic? Do you live in a world or a universe that is working for your good? Or you live in a universe where you have to fight for everything? Because that question, what kind of universe do I live in, really begins to set the whole trajectory of our life. The world is as we are. One of the first things one learns as they begin to study metaphysics is this, is that we are a point of contact between all the planes of being that we live in. We know that there is the material world that we live in, the seen world, and there's the unseen world. In many ways, the unseen world is almost more real than the material world, because the material world proceeds from the spiritual world. The seen world comes from the unseen. And so, in many ways, our work is in the unseen world. And again, that we are a point of contact. Ernest Holmes, one of the great spiritual heroes of my life, would say that we are a center of divine consciousness within the vast whole. And again, I'll just invite you to contemplate that quietly to yourself, just to say, I am a center of divine consciousness within the vast whole. So there's a translation of the Christian Bible by a man by the name of Eugene Robinson, and it's not a literal translation. The beauty of it is that he's a poet, and so that he writes this, or he translates this, rather he interprets this from the perspective of a poet. And I just love this. It's from the Gospel of St. Matthew. You are here to be a light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We are going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on the hilltop, on a light stand, shine, keep open house, be generous with your lives. So that is probably the greatest advice, is to consider, first of all, if the world is as we are centers of divine consciousness. We are light. And we're not meant to play small. We're not meant to live under a shade. We're meant to shine. We're meant to be generous, to have our lives be open houses. So lately, I've been haunted by this article that I read by a woman by the name of Vedanta Shiva. She's an ecofeminist, she's an author, she's a really remarkable person. But I read this the other day, and it's haunted me. She says, "We've moved from wisdom to knowledge, and now we're moving from knowledge to information. And that information is so partial that we are creating incomplete human beings." So let that sink in for a moment. We've moved from a culture, a tribe, a way of being, from wisdom to knowledge, and then from knowledge to information, which is just so partial, so distilled, so edited to what it is. But I would add even more. We've moved from wisdom to knowledge to information to entertainment. And then we live in a world that titillates us, numbs us, distracts us, entertains us. And as a result, we sort of lose our sense of humanity. You know, if one thinks about all the great myths and legends, there's sort of this uber myth that's in every one of them, whether it's the Book of Exodus or Star Wars, whether it's from the Wizard of Oz or any other story or myth. And it basically comes down to this: we become distracted. When we become distracted, we fall into a sense of amnesia. We forget who we are. We forget our name. And when we do, we live in bondage. And so wisdom sets us free. Entertainment keeps us locked into something. And just watch and kind of see how it is. You know, we have become commodities, consumers, whatever you want to say, but it's not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are, the most important thing to remember, the absolutely truest thing about who you are, is that you are the beloved of the divine. And that is it. And from then, if the world is as we are the beloved. We are the one. We are the one that is just loved unrelentingly by a divine presence that desires to seek our good and is forever luring us into new possibilities to live more authentically, more powerfully, more generously. You know, we say that God is love. And I had a friend of mine ask me the other day, he was like, "Well, you know, Guy, theologically, how is God love?" And first of all, I think we probably should define what love is. And there's a theologian that I really like. His name is Thomas Ord. He wrote a book called God Can't. And he uses this as a definition. And what is love? Love is purposeful action in relation to God and others that aims to do good. Love advances well-being. It fosters flourishing, abundant light, and blessedness. To put it formally, to love is to act intentionally in response to God and others, to promote overall well-being. God's love is always working for the good because God is love. And you know, what the mystics have taught us, and what the great wisdom traditions of all basically say is, there are two sets of holy writings. The first is the sacred scriptures, whether they be the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Bible or the Quran or the Dhammapada or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. Personally, Lord of the Rings. But even besides that, the great book, the first book of wisdom, comes from nature herself. And that if we observe nature, this is where we begin to understand the knowing. And so God is love. What does nature tell us? That nature is always giving of itself, to itself, through itself, for itself. The early Christian fathers and mothers that lived in the deserts early on had this word. It's a Greek word. It's called kenosis. It means the pouring forth. And so we see what nature is that nature is pouring forth its love, its desire for well-being, its intentionality to flourish. And that is the very nature of each and every one of us too. So whatever you define God to be, it really comes down to our good. And our good is always acting for our well-being. You know, there's an old saying, I'm sure you've heard it. I used to hear it 1,000 times. They used to say this, that, you can't really love another person until you truly love yourself. But I'm going to challenge that, because I think, nothing can come from nothing. Something has to come from something. That you really can't love yourself until you yourself have been loved. Let that percolate for a second. It's why we come together in communities. It's why we develop spiritual communities, whether they be in person or here virtually. To be in a place that, even though we may not be in the material or in the scene, but that love itself is present. And what I want to offer you is a practice. And it's a practice that I do every day. And if you practice it, things will happen. And this will be my promise to you, is that as we are going through this practice, I'm going to be holding you, my dear person, my dear friend, here in the virtual world, in this, to know that you are loved. So this is how the practice is. And if you'd like to do it with me, please do. There's nothing you need to do but just settle in. And if it feels appropriate for you to close your eyes, do so. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about somebody, or perhaps an animal companion, that you just love. This is easy for me because I have this dog, Rolo. We have this dog in our household, Rolo. He's 1 year old, and he literally is a force of nature. And even when he's chewing a slipper or digging a hole and rearranging the backyard, there's something about him that is just so easy to love. And so just maybe it's a friend or a child or a partner or a pet. Think about them and let that love come into your heart. And let it fill your whole heart to where the heart begins to expand and you can feel that love expand into your whole body. Breathe it in. And then say these words. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. And now hold that image that you have brought into your heart and look at them and say to them, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. And may you be happy. And now, just think of someone that your intuition is taking you to that could have some love. and just hold them now. Imagine them in front of you and say to them, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. And may you be happy. What would our world be like if we all did this practice daily? You know, I start every morning with my household, and my household includes the animals, my beloved partner, the trees, the plants, everything that surrounds our household. And then I extend it out to our neighborhood. Then I extend it out to the spiritual community that I serve. Then I extend it out to our country. Then I extend it out to the entire world. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be well. May we all be peaceful and at ease. And may we all be happy. So thank you, dear friends, for being part of this virtual experience. I'm just so grateful that you've tuned in. Please like and subscribe. Please share with your friends if you enjoyed it. And, you know, we are a spiritual community. We are existing because of your generosity. So if it feels appropriate for you to help support this ministry, please do. Thank you so much. I look forward to spending more time with you. Namaste.